talking about.
Gonna go in the hot seat.
Oh, yeah. Might have to. I'm going to have to read from my Computron. Is it alright?
Do you need that?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm talking about creativity having a higher value. My title is If Creativity Was Valued for All in Schools, the Workplace and Home Life much higher than it currently is, then we would reap the benefits as a nation. I might be quite bold. So, should I talk about my research methods?
Yeah,
Just
so run through, that'd be great.
I read a book called Creativity in Young Children, similar to one probably. I brainstormed on my own experiences, looked up funding and stuff like that, and got a bit confused, and then looked at newspaper articles to do with government and stuff, and Lynn Gardner's blog, and had conversations with people in different arenas to creative ones. I watched Horizons programme on the science of creativity.
I saw that.
It's amazing. And I just love watching videos, and I watched loads of TED Talks. I typed in creativity and watched them all. Because they're basically like academic essays, but I'm justifying it.
It's fine. It's fine as a source.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They
It's
are.
fun. Cool. So, should I just go for it? Okay. So, I'm saying, if creativity was valued for all in schools and in the workplace and in home life, and much higher than it currently is, then we'd all reap the benefits. What I mean by this is, in my mind, there needs to be a serious shift in our understanding of creativity from being either reserved for artists and kind of creative types, and secondly, only belonging to certain events or certain moments, like in the art class or an art project or when it's set to happen. So the issue here is like the perception of creativity, and I think perception can be changed quite easily when those in charge of establishments are thinking differently about how to implement new and inspired policies. But I'll get onto that in a moment. First, I'll sort of look at those 2 points. So the point about it being just for artists or just for creative people. When I first walked into one of my nurseries, one of the practitioners was like, "Oh, you're the artist, aren't you?" And she pointed to one of the other people. She was like, "She's the creative one." And the other lady was like, "Oh, yeah, I just did a hedgehog. Oh, it was rubbish." And yeah, things like that. And I just thought that's really telling of, and that was kind of the beginning of those kind of experiences of people saying, "Oh, he's creative, she's not." That it's either you are or you're not. And yeah, so we see that a lot, and I think that's a lot to do with creative confidence. And often we think it's preserved for the artists or the people who do it, or are a bit different, or whatever. So why is this? I think being creative is like a muscle, and I think it gets stronger the more you use it. But you can't do that if you have the perception that it's an activity that is reserved for people who are good at it. This idea that it's good or bad, it's like right or wrong. Where does this come from? I think we need to shatter this illusion, and I think it stems from the idea of looking silly or being judged. David Kelly says it's about the fear of judgment. He hears time and again situations where a teacher or another student shot them down, and they sort of opt out of thinking of themselves as creative at that point. It moves in and becomes more ingrained in adult life. That's what he said. So that just shows the importance of being unjudgmental of other people's creativity, and in particular in early education, because it seems like the child has no concept of what has value really until you tell them that's the case. I saw that quite a lot when I was watching a show a couple of weeks ago, and the children sort of stare blankly at the show until there was a really funny bit that the adults found really funny, and the adults were looking and laughing their heads off, and the children weren't looking at the show or what should have been funny. They were looking at the adults and going ha ha ha, yeah, and like joining in because they were telling them that was what was good, had value. So yeah, we can see that the burden of this falls on the parent and the practitioners to sort of encourage value in all creative acts, no matter what their own subjective eye might say about it. So that happens quite a lot, and there's an example of how that happened negatively in one of the nurseries I was at. A parent came in and she was asking the nursery leader if the artist could teach her daughter how to draw arms, because she'd drawn like this amazing portrait of this princess. And it was really beautiful. She's had perfect eyes, and she was really good, but she's got no arms. And so she was saying, can your artist teach her to do that? And so she's already saying that there's a right and wrong, but maybe B just thought that was finished and the princess was done. She didn't need arms, so she didn't, whatever her reasons were. And actually this girl is already noticeably more conscious of expressing herself. She says things like, oh, this is silly. And she's kind of held back from creative activities. And I think this could lead to all sorts of self-imposed restrictions later on in life. Sort of like worrying about what people think about you. So if this is the case, then with parents we need the teachers to be setting examples for them. And the book Young Children's Creative Thinking says it's important to form situations where the child can be creative with an adult to form communities of practice. And then this can pass on good practice to that child in turn. So this actually can be the responsibility of many people, not just the parent. And it does, of course, the book stresses, rely on the adult becoming at ease with their own creativity too. And so there's really like interesting research at the moment about creativity and the science of it. So now there's like widely available information about how to release your judgment and be open to creativity, and we can stop passing on this understanding that we've got in ourselves about what's right or wrong to the children. So there's all this stuff like neuroscience stuff, which is finding out about something called functional fixedness, which is like just going along in your normal routine. And it's saying that having unexpected and unusual experiences can really help your creativity. So I think that's just one thing that these adults can kind of enter into, like opt into, saying, yeah, I'll do this a different way around, or yeah, we'll go with what these children are saying they want to do, but it's a bit weird, but getting out of this linear idea of what's right and wrong. So my second point was that we currently seem to think that creativity is reserved only for certain events, so like the art class or the art session, or when people have set a time for doing it. And I think creativity isn't just to please someone else, but it's a form of expression, and it's a therapy, and it's a way of translating life in order to understand it more fully. Like my journal, I think, is really creative, but it's really important to just me, and like don't think anyone else would find it very amazing. But it's really useful. Creativity can happen, and more importantly, it can help you at any moment. A friend of mine who's got a big company, like proper business type company, and he's got his own brewery and a chain of pubs and things. He says he relies heavily on creativity because he wouldn't be able to make these kind of ingenious connections and respond to these decisions that've got a lot hanging on them if he didn't have a kind of creative, flexible mind. And you can really see that in certain companies, I think. Increased creativity could well have a huge impact on productivity, advancement of business and innovation, and therefore I think like boost economy. I'm not saying that like just put more art in schools, but maybe saying that schools and workplaces need to encourage creative methods of responding to the curriculum and encourage personalised learning. So since leaving school, I've had a few experiences that have been more towards that, a bit like the Arts Award, and I've done doing a diploma in permaculture, and MA to a certain extent is like it, but they all like actively encouraged a personal pathway and a personal way of presenting and documenting my discoveries and my work. And the effect of this on my motivation and enjoyment has been massive. And I really remember what I've learned a lot more and passionate about it because it's been personal to me. Robson says that ownership and autonomy are important and closely linked to intrinsic motivation. And if we had more ownership, we would be more creative. The key is that you show your learnings, like that you have progressed. And this method does involve kind of the scary thing of being personal, with the possibility of being judged, and risk-taking. But that, in my mind, is really important in our life. I understand that people will say it's not quantifiable and that we need hard facts and figures in schools and in the workplace. But we seem to have a problem these days with doing things now to benefit the long term. I think a lot of this is very short-sighted. I really think that being safe to be creative as a child creates an empowered, empathic and inventive adult. Dan Jarvis of The Guardian says that creative opportunity has an intrinsic and tangible value. Today's Britain survives and prospers by the talent of its people. It evolves through an investment in human capital that allows people to innovate, create and think anew. We develop, we come together, we see things differently and understand where others come from. This, of course, has benefits individually, economically, in our communities and will make us a better nation. Research conducted by George Land and Beth Jarman has shown that children are instinctively creative, but over time they lose the ability to think laterally. Much of the responsibility for this degradation of creativity lies with our education system, which decreases our crucial ability to think differently. So this is the kind of thing that can get passed on through generations, and I feel like I've seen that quite a bit in these past few months. In the example of Bee's mum or other teachers and practitioners, I had a lot of questions in the nursery about what this is, like what is it you're doing, like what's that called? And I was often like, what do you think? I don't know, it doesn't have a name. They're just trying to gauge things and box them in. Creativity is something unknown, and often we can be afraid of something we think we can't do or don't understand. So we need to give children and adults the opportunities to overcome these fears in school and work life. We can turn fear to familiarity through small steps. In immersive theatre, audience members who would usually sit in the dark watching end up getting massively involved in performance, wearing masks, dancing, exploring. And I know this can only happen if you create an environment where they feel really safe and where they know the rules, and vitally where there's an invitation or an offer. I think nobody has to be creative, but I think we need to open up more space and create more opportunities and invitations for adults and children to respond creatively to tasks in their lives, free from judgment, supported, and like as if the offer is there. So how does this translate into a concrete idea? Well, allowing a level of autonomy is just one example, even to the state of just you're allowed to decorate your own desk or position your chair where you want it, or making it not weird to bring in a plant into the office or whatever, and encouraging that. It can be how you respond to a maths problem, how you present it at school, as long as you got the answer in there, then it's all right. And by implementing ideas like this formally at first, it doesn't take long for personal perceptions to change. So I think a way to do it is to make these kind of policies in schools and workspaces to open up this space. And soon people will become a lot more accepting to see both themselves and others as creative and take more accepting view to themselves and others creatively. I think this creates self-acceptance and empathy, which isn't such a bad thing. In fact, you don't have to make it a strong policy. You can just let the individual schools or businesses decide on what they're going to do themselves, because it would soon become clear who had and who hadn't embraced this. For example, Google, and they're a massive company, give their employees one Friday a month to work on whatever they want. It could be anything. And they do that because autonomy promotes creativity, and creativity is inspired and inventive. And it turns out that some of their biggest products have come out of these Fridays and made them a lot of money. But this doesn't just affect creative industries. Opening up the opportunities for people to develop creative confidence has a very positive result on the individual. Kelly has found that when people gain this confidence, they start working on things that are really important to them. They often quit what they're doing and go in new directions. They have more ideas, so they can choose from their different ideas. And in general, they just make better decisions. So these more creative, empowered individuals can have a positive and revolutionary effect on the whole. Plus, they'd be more empathetic and open to the individual expressions of others, which I think is a good thing. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Wow, that's fantastic. The Open Sesame project is very central, or the things that we're trying to do with the Open Sesame project. You've outlined them a lot there.
Yeah, it can't help it, just comes through.
Yeah,
I guess it's right in front of us.
Yeah, difficult question, but there's a lot of difficulty in things that seem like they should be so simple. Become very difficult.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm quite aware that it's easy to make sweeping statements that it should just be like this or like that, but I know it's a massive system that's been in place for ages. Sorry, that was a lot like reading an essay at you.
That's right. I had life. Okay, so should we think again before about any questions that's raised? you want to kick off?
I've only got a couple. One of them, I don't know if you'd be able to answer. As an artist, or not even as an artist, as a human being that's interested in all this stuff that you've said, what would you like to do personally in the future to help change these attitudes to creativity? Or have you thought about that? Is it what do you think you could do?
That's interesting.
That's a big question.
No, that's really good. So I think a lot of it, like there's two phases to sort of what I was talking about. So a lot of it starts with sort of opening up the people who work with other people, so are in charge of people, and opening up their ideas of what is creative and what and to have let go of their judgments and their fear of judgment, and to understand that creativity can be really beneficial to them and to their work environment or their school environment, so that they can kind of pass that on. So I think I lost my second thought. Yeah, so like getting those kind of people won over in a way, so they can pass on their sort of knowledge and encourage it where they are, would be really cool. Because it does all start with the individual, I think. And a lot of people have had awful experiences where they've gone, yeah, look at this, and it's like someone said to them, oh, you know. And you see that a lot of the nurseries as well, when you're like, oh, that's an amazing picture, that's really good, and then they want to make it brown, and you,
Or people
instead
try
of
to
going,
stop them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then they go, oh, it looked great, and now you've ruined it, and actually, it's not about that. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely do things for people who are sort of influential, personal workshops or creative workshops.
That's cool.
Do you want to ask your other question? Or should
It was just because the Science of Creativity, that TV show that you saw, what was it? Were there any interesting bits?
Yeah, like they were saying about the thing I was saying about getting out of your rhythm of life and mixing things up, and to become more open to anything happening does open up your ideas of creativity. So that's a way you can sort of
Promote it?
promote it. Yeah,
Because people respond to science.
yeah, they do.
And, yeah.
Yeah. And you can take that research as an artist or a leader or whatever of a group of people and sort of use that to see how you can inspire creativity in other people. What else is interesting?
There's a whole load of similar stuff about children's brain development in the early years.
Yeah.
Loads.
Oh, cool.
But, and about how, because when a baby's born, the brain's not fully developed, the synapses, the connections aren't all made, and so those early experiences, I think particularly in the first 2 or 3 years, are really vital in providing. The way I've kind of heard it described, or sort of understand it, is that their brains start building scaffolding on which later experiences are hung. So for a child to encounter, wind or water or fun or something sort of soft, or all those you have to build from absolute nothing, don't you? You have to build those experiences start getting locked away in the brain, and then when you encounter water in a slightly more sophisticated way, you already know what water is, so you can then engage with it differently. So it's a matter of building those connections and putting very young children into very stimulating environments, and particularly into creative kind of environments where they're allowed to freely explore and make their own connections and be exposed to multi-sensory stimuluses, does have an impact on the development of the brain, and they're starting to sort of provide evidence of that, scientific evidence of that.
So what kind of effect does it have if they don't have those experiences?
They don't have they don't have the scaffolding to build on, because it's all about making more and more the more and more connections you've got in your brain, the better. You know, the more material you've got there, the more you can connect thoughts and ideas, and it just activates it all. And I think when children, cases of children where they've had very severe neglect in their early years, it's hard for them to catch up. Those early years are really important, which is why creativity in the early years is so important.
Yeah, because they're saying about the part of your brain that is creative, it's the part that fires and just reaches out kind of random bits of information rather than going along the same pathways, so it can create new connections. And they did a study actually of Romanian orphanage children, and they've got way smoother brains than the children of, like in England and stuff. It actually develops your physical brain. You can see it in small children. It's more lumpy and have more experience and stuff. Yeah, and also there's a thing with, I don't know whether other art forms, but theatre especially, there's a lot of cognitive science going on there with about theatre can create an empathy. When you watch it, the same things fire in your brain from watching someone being sad on stage or being scared to you being sad or scared. So that can really...
It's really interesting, like, if you watch, I don't know, watch people that are watching something on TV, there is, like, I do it myself, like when someone's smiling on TV or something, I've got this massive grin, because you kind of, or, I don't know, like when you cry at someone who's, it's funny, like you mirror what you see.
Yeah, because you're feeling it as if you, and then you can recall it as if you have experienced it anyway, and that will inform your new problem-solving techniques, I think. They say that when when your life flashes before your eyes, if you're in a dangerous situation, they say that that's because your mind is like flicking back really fast through all the experiences you've ever had to try and find something.
Really?
And people often say, "Oh, I saw it in a film," and so I punched a shark in the eye or something. Saw it in a film, that kind of thing.
You mean
it doesn't have to be you that's experienced.
They've sifted right through for something to help you.
Yeah. But that's what you do in a problem-solving situation, I guess. You go, this and this.
Did you ask me? No, I haven't. Your turn.
There's one similar to Zen, but okay. What about this? You talked, in a way, your arguments were so watertight. I was interested in the flip side. It's like, okay, so why would anyone not think this? It's so obvious. So, and you talked about people being fearful of failure and looking silly. What do you think is behind why the whole world isn't signed up to embracing creativity?
Yeah, I was trying to think of, like, obviously if you really think something strongly, it's really hard to think of the counter-arguments. It was kind of like what you were talking about earlier, about there being, put into school and coming out a workforce. Like, too much individual thinking is not good for a select amount of people.
Okay.
I think you would get a lot more... I think creativity does spur, like they were saying, like it spurs you on to do something that you feel passionate about or think that you can achieve, and come up with, like, design its creativity immensely. And I think we could all be designers in a way. We could all like design our own lives to be the way we want them to be and stuff. But if we all thought that, that would be a bit that threatening to people who want a sort of complicit. That sounds a bit radical, but yeah. But actually, it's about benefiting the whole, and if everyone's using that creativity to, you know, create good advancements and stuff. Wait, let me do the other side. Why would people say no to it? Not necessarily everyone is a creative person or has it in their mind or wants to be. But there's different levels of it, aren't there?
Can I disagree? Can I say?
Yes, yeah.
One of the things that I was going to put in my summary is that I don't know, I feel that creativity, that everyone is creative, because creativity isn't just what we deem it into these categories.
Yeah.
That even just making a joke is a creative thing,
Yeah.
or how we choose to walk around the supermarket. I don't know,
Yeah.
really tiny little things. I think everyone has it in some way, because I think creativity isn't what. Maybe that's part of the thing, that the wider population already have an idea about what creativity is, but maybe it's not that.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice point. I think by writing this essay, I boxed it in as well, and maybe it's more about promoting, supporting people's expression and individual expression, because as soon as you support it, it will happen more. Because I think if you do go off course, or you do something random, or you do something creative, it's because it feels good to you and it comes from quite a deep place, even if it is just deciding that you're sculpt your mash and no one notices or it, but you know, it's and if you, it's dangerous, and it, like singing, it comes from here or whatever, so it's dangerous seeming to put yourself in that position.
Maybe that's why people are afraid to be creative, because it's something that's so deep, it's such a deep part of them. It's
I think
it's exposing that part of you, maybe.
it's an expression of you that maybe no one else does individually. Yeah.
So I'm having to hold back here because there's so much I could add into this. We're here all night.
Do you want to release your tongue for a question though?
Because you know, all of this stuff is just at the heart of what the Open Sesame project is about. You know, that in fact Open Sesame is less about the children, because children, like you say, they are creative. And they don't have, you know, left to their, given the space, they don't have a problem with it. And it's about trying to make a change in the people who support those children's learning, and trying to give them an opportunity to take a step into the unknown, to take a risk, to build their confidence in their own creativity, to be able to understand their own creativity, and thereby to be able to be more confident, creative practitioners in their day-to-day work, and as parents as well. You know, the creative event is about giving parents that little slightly risky, slightly open-ended experience where they go, actually that was okay, and it wasn't just people dressed in pink tutus with a very clear story, it wasn't just princesses and fairies, it was about us doing something. So my question, because I thought what you said about your experience of going into a nursery and they go, oh yes, you're the artist, which immediately creates a distance and a barrier. If the term artist, and actually we could apply that to the arts as a whole, serves to create a barrier in people's ability to understand what creativity is and to identify their own creativity, what other words or terms could we use instead to describe? So kind of linked to your question about, you know, what could you do to change things?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's interesting. It does create a barrier. Yeah, because what I'm really interested, because theatre and performance is so much fun, and I don't think it should be just taken by the people who want to be on stage and somehow through events in their life being given the confidence to do it. I think it's a really amazing experience, and you can see by the amount of like community groups that do it and stuff. I'm really interested in how you can get an audience to be part of that and feel part of that experience. So like how
I'm
think
not
it's
I'm not saying that you're going to know, you know, that there's any particular answer at all.
Yeah.
I just think it's an interesting thing to
it's
explore.
like changing your your like perception of it as well. So you know, like what being an artist is, and
so
'cause there's such a
going back to that
distance.
instance of like walking into a nursery setting and you go, oh, yes, I'm the artist, and that immediately sets up a particular way of people relating to you.
Yeah.
How else could you
I don't,
describe yourself, or how else could you
it's
introduce?
almost like a my friend was talking the other day about guidance jobs, and I was saying about helping people around, and she's like, well, maybe it's more about lots of people in the guidance business or whatever, and I quite like that idea. Going in as a creative facilitator, I think that means a lot of you projecting giving your ideas of value that you'd give to your own work, or hopefully to these people. And I should have said, or could have said, did you enjoy it? And kind of enhance that and bring that out of them. So did you like your hedgehog? Are you going to stick it up, or did you enjoy the feeling of it? Or I bet you're creative too, or like trying to bring that out of these people and kind of break through those right and wrong.
That's interesting. So presenting yourself as a guide rather than so as a conduit to something rather than a finished. Because saying you're an artist is like saying I am. I'm complete. I'm complete.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of artists a long time to be able to feel like they can justify saying that anyway. It took me ages, and I still don't think I am, but because I don't maybe. Well, yeah, when I didn't work in the arts, but I still felt like I was a creative person, quite strongly. I work creatively, but everyone does. So yeah, I don't know. It's just about bringing that out, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. And on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Imagine if there'd been four of us.
Oh my god. I don't know how we'd have got